Howdy everybody in YouTube land. What we have in front of us today is a Sony Watchman model FD-270. This is a neat little one. I don't know, I kind of have a soft spot for these Watchmans. I've collected a few of these now. And this one had the case that came with it. Now, I don't know exactly how this is supposed to work. I don't know how that... I think I kind of do. I don't know. I'll figure that out later. But that's not important. I've already taken the liberty of taking the cover off because the thing is, this particular set does not work. Now, most of these typically do, like the FD-20As and FD-10As. They're fairly reliable sets, right? And they seem to work fairly decently. And this one was manufactured September of 1987. But I've already taken the liberty of taking it apart because it does not work. Any guesses as to why it doesn't work? Trust me, you don't have to think hard, especially if you've been a long time viewer of my channel. If you haven't, well, I'll show you. As we can see, we have surface mount electrolytic capacitors in here. Specifically the ones with the yellow wrappers, which are known leakers in like Apple Macintosh equipment. So I took a peek under here. I've disconnected some of these ribbon cables. I still have to take that one off. But I've disconnected the others, and sure enough, we have evidence of the puking in various places. So yeah, look at that down in there. Now the through-hole ones I'm not entirely certain of. And the through-hole ones scare me because look at this. For example, these are like height accurate down to the fraction of a millimeter here. So you've got to make sure if you replace these, if we can, to find the exact heights. Now, I don't know if those are leaking or not, but those are exactly like the ones I'm finding in the Indextrons from the same time period. So, you know, I'm not entirely surprised by that. But yes, I need to remove the rest of this PCB in order to get at certain things. Now, some of these wires are just kind of like stuck in here. So I have to make a note which wire colors go where. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and heat the soldering iron up over here. Because we're going to pull off the this connector right here because it's just in my way. Right? So, yeah. Kind of, someone's been in here because it still has a lot of flux, all these capacitors. So someone's been in here messing with these, but that could be factory too. That's entirely possible. The factory's been in here screwing around, so. Okay, I've got to get all these boards out. So what I've currently done is I've moved the potential or the tuning control all the way to the extreme left here. So when I take the board out, we won't lose the positioning of the dials because it's all gear driven. So, alright, let's get these boards out so I can make a capacitor list. Alright, so I have that one removed and unsoldered. So the next thing we need to do is I need to grab my pad here. And we need to make a note of which wires go where here. Because I got to remove all of that. So G1 is yellow. So we're going to say G1 is yellow. Here. And then we have the two black ones, which is the speaker. We already know that goes up under here. And then, let's see. Yeah, there's a pile of these that I don't know where they go. They're kind of snaked around the cap. So we have a black one there which says TV, which is black. Actually, it doesn't even need to come off. And then we have, let's see, red, which, yeah, I can't tell where some of these go, so I have to shut the camera off. Getting this crap apart is just almost as bad as a camcorder. It's like a sarcophagus of doom. So we get all the wires out of the way, so that frees all this up, but then we've got to take the picture tube, and we got to unplug the picture tube here, and slide it out of the way first, so then we can get all of this out. So this stays behind, luckily, so we didn't have to mess with the tuning potentiometer or anything. So that stays behind. But all of this has to come out with the brackets and all that stuff removed. Yeah, so now I have this out of the way. And this is... Yeah, so now I gotta get the speaker out of the way, which is actually kind of dirty, but that's gotta come out of the way. But all this ribbon... Yeah, it's weird. It's going to have to stay behind because this one is soldered in right there. You can see how it folds around. So I'm going to leave it alone. And it makes sense because it solders in on the other side too. So leave that alone because really I don't need to take this apart any more than it already is to get to the capacitors. Now, I don't know what's under that shield. I'm almost afraid to find out. It's probably the DC-DC converter. That's awful small to have any electrolytics in it. It could have one there, but I don't know. This is fun. It's not likely though. There's probably tantalums in there. But anyway, so get this speaker out of the way, I think, or at least try to. Because the point is, we got to get to this. Now this is a 100 volt cap. Now I don't remember, because the issue with this is it goes in like this, so it's literally like that. So the height matters. So enough height. I could put a full size cap there because I have 10 mic 100 volt full size caps, but yeah, we'll see. The rest of it I don't know. Now these purple caps I'm gonna leave alone because they're polymers. But the rest of them, these two here, have got to go. And I don't see anything else. My biggest concern is what's under this shield. It's all soldered together, so I don't know. Alright, well, let's keep plugging at this thing. Alright, so all the caps have been recorded over here and removed. And you can just see how disgusting and corroded it is, like there. All of those. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So, yeah, they all had to go. That's why it wasn't working. These over here don't appear to be leaking yet, but, you know, just with the rest of it. We got over here we have to remove still, which actually I might as well do that now. These things are so weak that I'm just simply doing this here, and it's just popping off the board like that without breaking anything. They're literally that weak from corrosion. So yeah, that one's corroded too. Yep. So, okay. Well, time to go scrub-a-dub-dub and clean all those off. This one I'm going to get with a Q-tip because I don't want to mess with this tuner module. But, yeah. And then we have this lonely little tantalum over here. So, I removed... You're going away. So, I removed the two, polymer caps just so I can clean underneath them, and I removed these two skinny 220s because I do not have those on hand. There's some of these I'm going to have to order, I think, but it all depends on because of the height restriction. There's length and width and height restrictions in this because of how it's all sandwiched together. So yeah, it gets fun after a bit. Besides the leaking capacitors, I found out why it wouldn't turn on and doesn't work. There's the DC input and the battery terminals kind of go here too. If you follow this trace, it comes all the way around and goes here. Well, it's broke right there. So that's why it's not working, because this capacitor literally ate this away because there was current flowing through it. Since I own this thing and I don't want to invest a whole lot of time or money into it, the way I'm going to start this project off, I think, is I'm just going to go through the caps I do have, and I'm going to populate on the caps that I have. And then I'll go back through and determine what I don't have, and then figure out what will actually fit. Because I got a bunch of low profile ones from all the previous work I've done, but I don't know if they're actually going to fit in here, right? Yeah, so that's what we're currently doing. So I've got all this cleaned up, the pads cleaned up for the surface mount stuff. Now, a lot of these caps are 47 microfarad at 4 volts and 6.3 and stuff like that. So these little 10 volt tantalums will work perfect for those. So I'm going to start with those, and then we'll work on the rest of this as we go along. And I still got to do that one, but I'm going to save that one for last because how much of a mess it is. So I'm still short one capacitor plus the ones up here in the front. I got all the rest of them in, and this is why the capacitor height and width profile on this particular device is so important, is because of where the CRT sits. So like that's exactly how it goes together in that sandwich over there. And you can see the width of the capacitors being super important because of where the CRT sits. So I can't just like put anything in there. I got to spec them out appropriately, assuming I can even find them. But more importantly, these caps here that I get in there, this is why the width of this one just barely clears. Because I used that one to substitute the one that was in here because I don't have these long skinny ones. So, yeah, the yoke is literally just right there. So luckily, all of the important ones I put in here clear. See, this one just barely, because the screw is right there. So, yeah, it's important to get the criticality of the width and height set right. So if I look at this one, you can see why they did what they did here. So like, for example, that's why they've got this cutout in the PCB, because the CRT sits right here like that. So yeah, I don't have these on hand. I'm going to have to spec them out. I don't know if they're bad or not. Probably not, because only a few of these, all the surface mount ones and a couple of through holes were leaking here, and that was it. And it may have been just leftover juice from the surface mount ones anyways. But since I'm already in here, I might as well just replace the rest of them. So I got this far with what I have in stock. I just have to order this particular capacitor there and all of these here, including this like 6.8 at 100 volt, which I do not have at all. So that's where we are. So now that we have the capacitors now that we need, that the order came in, we can finally finish this board. Because remember, we needed the little skinny one here, which I don't have. Now, I cannot find that exact one anymore. It's no longer manufactured, but I can get this one here, which is the 226.3, which I'm hoping is narrow enough to where it works. So I have that one. Now this one I couldn't find at all, this 220 at 6.3, so I'm just going to have to leave it because this one's just going to be a little bit, because this was the smallest one I can get, and I was trying to hope that that would fit in there, but I don't think it's going to. So I'm just going to have to leave it. I ran into another one as well. The 5.6 volt, or crap, the 5.600 volt here, which is this one here. I can't find that anymore either. Closest one I can get it are these. So I'm wondering if those are going to be too tall. We'll have to see. So that's out of the way as best as I can get it. So, yep, is what it is. But anyways, it's just a little Sony Watchman. It's not like there's any value in these. This is probably a $20 TV on eBay right now. But none of them's going to work if you buy them, because they're all going to have this problem. So if you want one of these, especially this particular model, you're going to need to put some money into it. So, but you can get the FD-10A and the FD-20As, and those are typically solid. So anyways, moving right along. Alright, so as I'm putting this thing back together, I ran into a couple of problems. So, that one cap where I said I couldn't get the right height, well, it didn't fit because this flyback transformer sits right here. So this literally sandwiches right there. So that cap was running into this one. So that was problem number one. So I had to fold it over, and I got lucky that it cleared everything else. So that clears, and it shouldn't be a problem. The second thing is this 100 microfarad 6.3 volt cap was originally spec'd at a 100 UF 4 volt. And the reason why is because of the size. I had to order, because the original one here that I put in there was just too wide, so it was running into this transformer right here. So I had to go get one that was slightly smaller, so it just clears the transformer. So everything just clears now. So at this point, I've got to get the CRT in here, and I got to snake it through all these ribbons because that's fun, and then get it plugged in right here, and then get this thing, the wires soldered in on the yoke and all of that fun stuff. So the 4 wires, there's 4 wires on the yoke over here, which solder, between, you can just see there are 2 holes there. There's a hole, and a hole. So there's the 2 vertical and 2 horizontal, and then the yellow wire goes there, and then the 2 speaker wires go here, which is these 2 there. So we should be good enough, I think. At least I'm going to hope so. Alright, so it's pretty much back together. I just got to get this on there, and it's just barely fitting. It's going to be crammed in there. And the reason why is the capacitors, some of them are slightly taller, slightly bigger, and it's just because you can't get the original ones anymore. So we got to make do with what we can get. But yeah, that open trace that ran right here that I patched up definitely goes between the DC jack and the battery terminal here. Because if you look at the battery terminal, it comes out right there. So it connects here and here, ground and power. So this is positive, snakes all the way around and goes that way. So that's why it didn't work anymore. But on top of the leaking capacitors. But alright, got this potentiometer here sprayed out with a little bit of fader lube. So really it's a matter of, getting this thing back together and tested. So hopefully it works. So here we go. The all important, let's get this thing back together. Ooh, better before we do, we got to make sure these switches are in the right position versus those switches down there. So it looks like I have them correct right now. So yeah, it's just barely fitting together. So yeah. So what I've done is just put this one in the middle to hold the case on. And then I put these 2 screws in for right now because that's going to be the power to this thing. So now it's just a matter of getting batteries in here, and that's corroded, so I don't know how well that's going to work, but we'll try it. So power, battery, and battery. So this is the first power up since the recapicide. So does it work? I have audio. And I have picture, kind of. It's really dim and there's a lack of vertical deflection. So there's some B+ issues. But I don't know if these batteries are any good anymore. And I'm not transmitting a signal at the current moment in time, but yeah, it's just really dim. So there's the contrast control. Doesn't do anything. It's running. Barely, but it is. So there's 2 things we got to do. First off, we need to find out if these have the right voltage. And if they do, we're going to have to find the schematic, and we're going to have to do some B+ checks because there's an issue. 1.3 volts. 1.1. Yeah, these batteries are dead. That's why. .2. Well, that'll do it. 1.3. So the batteries are slowly going dead. So this one has the highest. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, I need new batteries. Whew, had me scared for a minute. So yes, and it's starting to shrink a little because the batteries are just done. But the tuner's working. You can see it pick up LTE and digital frequencies from the TV spectrum. It's mostly LTE because I think we're in the UHF band. No, we're in the VHF. Yeah, that's LTE. Well, hey, it works. It's very dim, but it does work. I think the CRT is just weak, but that's fine. These things, I don't think these things were ever bright to begin with. But yes, it works. It's funny, you can do sound only or do TV. But, alright. Yeah, I just got to get a fresh set of batteries. I've had these batteries for, I don't know, the better part of 7-8 years. So they've just been sitting around for a while. So I'm not surprised. Okay, so it works. It works good enough for me anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and start putting it back together. Alright, so I got a generator hooked up, set for channel 4. And here's an interesting fault. See, the vertical is not locked right now. It's just rolling, right? But everything looks fine. The minute I lock it in, look at this. See it jumping? Yeah, the vertical, that's a strange fault. Huh. Weird. So there's more troubleshooting to do. At least the caps are replaced. All that's good, but that's an issue. Yeah, it's strange.